Fear and Hunger is a 2018 indie game published by Happy Paintings. It's infamous for its punishing game design and dark subject matter, both of which combine to make the game a memorable, frustrating, but rewarding experience, if you choose to stick with it. Everyone and their dog has already made a video essay about this game, but before we dive into the meat of this video, I'll just sum up my feelings on the game. I largely agree with the conclusion reached by Super Eyepatch Wolf in his video, The Cruelest Video Game. The rewarding nature isn't just the feeling of overcoming something difficult, but the feeling of learning and becoming better and stronger, not just based on the game's mechanics, but based on your own accumulation of knowledge. Knowledge being the most powerful currency in the game by far. I would add to this point that because it is inherent to the experience that you will die over and over again, the game doesn't actually feel too frustrating. As someone who doesn't play many video games and isn't especially good at them, I kind of found this game a joy to get through, even though it is quite difficult. I think that's because what would normally be considered a halt in progress, that being dying over and over again and having to start over, is how you progress. Dying and learning why you died and how not to do it again is half the point. While the game isn't perfect, with there being a few typos, glitches, and some questionable subject matter, overall my feelings towards it are positive. I wasn't going to make a video about this game since everyone has pretty much said everything I would say, but then two things happened. One was that the aforementioned video by Super Eyepatch Wolf was trimmed down because even though it was largely censored, it still was demonetized and had to be adjusted. The other thing that happened is I saw a post expressing discomfort over the fact that the game's newfound popularity would lead to people breezing through it on the censor mod, and that this audience may fail to fully process the game's darker themes. I don't want to show the post here because I don't want anyone to be harassed over their opinions. By the way, if you use this video as an excuse to harass someone over their opinions, I will set you on fire with my mind. But the point of the post was very much that the widespread use of the censor mod is taking the fear and hunger out of Fear and Hunger. I kind of had negative feelings about both of these things for seemingly conflicting reasons, and I want to unpack why. I want to look at this culture of purifying media and why it exists, but also to look at this notion that maybe changing gameplay through a fan-made mod can have merit, at least sometimes. So first, let's talk about why the censored mod exists in the first place. There are a few different mods that censor Fear and Hunger, but one of the most popular ones was made by the YouTube user No Commentary. This particular mod censors out the nudity, replacing the breasts and genitals with either pine cones or black bars, and removes the sex scenes entirely. This mod, both in practice and design, makes the game streamable by lowering the risk that streamers or YouTubers will violate the terms of service on their chosen platform. While concern has been expressed that this might lead to the widespread consumption of the game being a compromised version of it, I guess I find that argument difficult to agree with since streams are themselves already transformative works. The act of sitting down and playing a game is a different media experience than watching a stream or a video essay. And while I'm sure that a case could be made that the bare-bones silent stream of just playing a game might not be considered transformative in the mind of some copyright holders, that's not what I'm here to debate or define. Your average facecam commentary stream is its own type of entertainment that's related to but separate from the actual game. And unfortunately, those streams and video essays can't really exist without the censor mod in the internet's current state, which is itself a problem. We live in a dystopia where adult-only spaces are disappearing from the internet so more websites can run advertisements and make money. Content creators, especially those that rely on their content as a source of income, have to bow to the whims of corporations and advertisers in order to profit from their work. And I do want to say, something that kind of strikes me as fucked up is how the Super Eyepatch Wolf video had a section where he actually criticizes the use of sexual violence in the game, and that section was also cut out of his video. I just think it's one thing to remove a section of semi-censored visual sexual content and another to remove a few sentences that critique sexual content in like an hour-long video. But I digress. For the record, I am not entirely exempt from this. While I don't depend on YouTube for income, I also don't want to risk a channel strike. Right now, you are currently watching a compromised version of the gameplay because I'm afraid of not playing by the rules. But as I said earlier, this video is not a replacement for the game, it's a transformative work. While YouTube videos and streams act as platforms for people to discover the game, the actual interaction and experience of it is mostly the uncensored version. I did a little poll on Tumblr to see how people are discovering and playing this game, and the majority of people will either play the game uncensored without watching a video first, or watched a censored video but went on to play the uncensored game. The next two most popular options were people who watched a censored video but didn't play the game, and people who watched an uncensored video and played the uncensored game. I'll admit my sample size was pretty small, with only 151 people, so take this with a grain of salt. I probably would have gotten more responses if I put it on the website formerly known as Twitter, but I would rather die than use that website, so here we are. Yes, it is deeply frustrating and a little disturbing that the only way gameplay and word of mouth can effectively spread is through a censored version of the game, but that's not the version most people want for themselves. But then there's the other side of this situation that I want to explore. What about the people who do seek out a censored version of this game? What about the censored mod as a tool for accessibility? And here's something I would like to point out before we really get into this. To be clear, the popular censored mod of Fear and Hunger is not like a cheerier, child-friendly game. There's still uncensored violence, self-mutilation, cannibalism, drug use, dismemberment, religious violence, potential child death, and mentions of suicide. Basically every dreary and upsetting thing, just sans nudity. I think this combined with the widespread uncensored use of the game makes me really think of the Fear and Hunger mod as a tool exclusively for accessibility, either for streamers or for people who are genuinely triggered by that content. By the way, there is a censored mod that just removes the sexual violence and keeps all of the other nudity and consensual sex scenes. I would consider that version to be the same game as the uncensored version of Fear and Hunger, just a specifically curated experience of that game. Like, if I were to fast forward or leave the room during a TV show, that's not really changing the TV show so much as my individual experience of that show. The uncensored mod of Fear and Hunger still exists, and you can play it. The artistic vision has arguably been changed in the censored mod, but not destroyed from existence. If I'm being completely and 100% transparent here, there is an enemy in Fear and Hunger that triggers a phobia of mine. It's just never been much of a problem because the enemy is pretty rare and pretty easy to defeat unless you get unlucky. But here's kind of where we get into the nitty-gritty, the heart of the issue. If this enemy were a common enemy, one that you always have to fight and is core to the game's mechanics and aesthetics, would I want a censored version of that game? Or would I just not play it? And that's kind of the center of the if you can't stand the heat, then get out of the kitchen argument regarding Fear and Hunger censor mod. What is the line between an individually curated experience and a totally compromised one? How much of Fear and Hunger as a work of art is taken out by these mods? Or rather, when does the gameplay itself move from an individual experience and into a transformative work in and of itself? Well, we're gonna answer that question today. No, I'm kidding. No, we're not gonna do that. I don't think there's like an exact quantifiable percentage of a game that needs to be changed before it suddenly tips over into being a completely different experience. There are so many elements of games and art in general, and some of those elements are kind of intangible. Atmosphere, tone, pace, etc. Even on the legal side of things, there isn't a specific percentage of a work that needs to be used in order for the derivative work to be considered either fair use or a copy. While fair use applies to things such as reviews and video essays, stuff like major overhaul mods of video games are something else entirely. I was discussing this with a friend, and he pointed out the ways that major mods compare and contrast to things like fan art and fanfiction. There's the use of a piece of art as a basis for a completely different media experience, similar to the function of fan works, but mods can also have the unique property of using the original work as a tool to create a new piece of media rather than a starting point for a new piece of media. For example, machinima. So, how does all of this tie back to Fear and Hunger? If there were a truly censored version of Fear and Hunger, like one without the violence, the drugs, or any of the subject matter, I think that would be a completely different way of experiencing the game, separate from merely an individually curated experience. Or alternatively, at that point, I could also view it as a completely different work, just with Fear and Hunger at its base. And even though I think the current popular censored version is still comparable to the uncensored one, someone might disagree. If they found the scenes with sex or nudity especially resonant or shocking or as a core part of their gameplay experience, I'm not sure I could confidently tell them that they're wrong. Like, Miro didn't include any of that stuff by accident, it was a legitimate artistic choice on the part of the creator. I don't know. I guess the point is that I think the existing mods for the game are a net positive, at least in the current internet age. But I am somewhat understanding of the stance that maybe if you need the content of the game to be a G rating, then this isn't a game I would recommend for you. But I also feel like you could figure that out for yourself. So, after unpacking all of that, I've reached no definitive conclusion on if there is or is not a correct way to experience Fear and Hunger. I guess I can only leave you with this. Fear and Hunger is a brutal, unforgiving game, and truly making it something soft and palatable would stop it from being Fear and Hunger. But I think the assumption that people are playing the censored mod specifically because they don't want to face the darker elements of the game is misdiagnosing the issue of censored content on the internet. It is a problem that more adult discussions are getting pushed off of the internet in pursuit of a clean, advertiser-friendly image for platforms. But I think that trying to gatekeep people from finding out about games through streams and videos is ultimately doing more harm than good. So, what do you think? Are the Fear and Hunger mods a form of transformation or a tailored experience? And is there merit to those types of mods even outside of their use as something streamable? Let me know what you think in the comments, and maybe like and subscribe while you're down there. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!